Dr. Jenny C. passed away on January 11th, 2025. Today's podcasts originally aired October 5th, 2022 on Straight Talk Live with Edna Howell-Parrish, and it is one of many tributes to Jenny's legacy of life. During this interview, she and her book's author, Holly Jenkins Livers, launched Jenny's book, I Mop Floors So You Won't Have To. Dr. Laster was born on February 6, 1940 in St. Louis, Missouri, where she was raised by grandparents. Jenny spent most of her adult life demonstrating her grandmother's inspiration. This motivated Dr. Laster's legacy of teaching, loving, and educating people from nonprofits and grassroots to the nation's top corporate and academic institutions. Now we remember Dr. Jenny C. Laster.
It's time for Straight Talk Live with renowned radio pioneer Edna Howell-Parrish, the television show and podcast dedicated to presenting thought-provoking issues and opinions with the goal of challenging listeners to re-examine their assumptions and expand their opinions and give thought to new ideas and concepts to better their lives and the lives of others. This is your opportunity to participate in making the world better. So without further ado, let's get ready for Straight Talk Live with your host Edna Howell-Parrish.
So good morning and welcome to Straight Talk Live, Jenny C. Laster. Good morning, lady.
Good morning.
Good morning, Edna.
What a wonderful intro.
Look at that, Jenny. She's going to be somebody, they said.
Yeah.
What'd you think about it?
What do I think about that?
Yeah.
They said it and they meant it. My great-grandmother was literate. My great-grandmother. And, I was born in 1940. I'm not ashamed to tell my age. But now, if it was my great-grandmother, imagine how old she was when she told me, I could be somebody, and she taught me how to read. She was literate when Black women and men were not literate as a whole. And so I've never known any life other than to study and try and be somebody. Have folks say, you're going to be somebody. If we plant the seed in our children when they are young, they grow up knowing that there's a place for them in this world.
In 2022, on this day, we announced the published book, first published book by Dr. Jenny C. Laster, I Mop Floors So You Won't Have To.
That's right.
Wow. Where did that title come from?
That title comes from my grandmother, who was a day worker, a domestic. And that was traditional in most families when I was a little girl. We didn't have fancy titles and fancy jobs. But my grandmother told me that she mopped floors so I wouldn't have to. And she and my grandfather paid for my undergraduate degree. And I'd like to say that my great-grandmother was literate. So literacy was not strange in my family.
Let's introduce our friend and Straight Talk Live consultant, fan, whole 9 yards of Holly Jenkins. Good morning, Holly.
Good morning, Edna.
Great. Now, you and Jenny have been friends for a number of years, I understand.
At least 40.
As long as I've been in Cincinnati, practically.
Yeah.
And just because you're a friend and you know someone, how you become the author of her book, I Mop Floors So You Won't Have To?
Well, first of all, that's what I do is write people's stories and help them, publish their books and so forth. So that's part of what I do. But how this particular project came about is that, and everyone knows her husband, C. Smith, your personal photographer, and he approached me about the project and asked me to work with Jenny to capture her life, her, everything that she wanted to say as far as about leadership and just, getting your stories down. I believe that we all have a story. And this is just us telling Jenny's.
Jenny's book, I Mop Floors So You Won't Have To, it's not so much an unusual story, but we could have picked any name that would have had book title and name that would have had something more fabulous to say. But mopping floors was an honorable job and still is today. However, she chose this. So how did you go about working with Jenny to get the nuance of her book out and her story in the book?
And just in speaking with her, a lot of people start off with the title of their book and then work from there. And I work just the opposite. I work your book and then something kind of like jumps out or stands out. And when she told me that her grandmother said, I mop floors so you don't have to, I know that for Jenny and her family, that was literally mopping floors. But bring that up to today, it can be figurative also, because the work that Jenny has done in the corporate community, mopped floors for those people that came behind her. She mopped figurative floors for her daughter and her grandson so that they didn't have to do some of the things that she had to. So, and Jenny believes that each generation has an obligation to mop floors for those behind. So I just thought that was perfect title. She approved it. C. Smith approved it. Everybody that heard it liked it. So that's what we went with.
But I want people to know also, this is not so much, it's about Jenny's life and the things that she's done, but it's also a workbook that can help us as we go into our careers and lifestyles, developing our leadership.
Yeah, because in the book, there's like pages where Jenny asked the question, who mopped floors for you? Who were your cheerleaders? Who were those people who were behind you? And you can actually write, I'll show you the pages. You can actually write in the book who those people were in your life. And then the very next section causes you to think, who are you mopping floors for? And you get to list those people who are following you and what you're doing to mop floors for other people. So there's several exercises throughout the book that the reader actually gets an opportunity to experience this instead of just reading about it.
Well, thank you, Holly. I wanted to get it out and let people know why Holly is here. Like I said, a consultant to Straight Talk Live forever. And so I appreciate you being here and being with Jenny. We're going to talk to her in just a minute. But this morning, I want to introduce all of our people checking in and our guests, reminding you that you can check in this morning, or also you can give a call and talk to Jenny if you'd like. Replying to Brother Prosser, good morning. Jenny Mulholland, she says, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Jerome Anderson says, good morning. Thank you, Jenny. Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Joyce Keys checking in. And Danny Dozier checking in this morning. Brenda Early, happy Sunday to you, Brenda. We appreciate you joining us this morning on Straight Talk Live. And so for you that are checking in this morning, Greg Berchino. Good morning, Greg. And I pronounce your name, I know, wrong. Nakia Lovett. Good morning, Nakia. And Brother Prosser again. And those of you that are checking in, messages coming up for our guest, Jenny Laster, Dr. Jenny C. Laster. Well, Jenny, you went on after that fourth grade in St. Louis. You made a name for yourself there. You went to Teachers College. You became a teacher in the St. Louis public schools. And then you come to Cincinnati, because we're going to skip over a lot of that good stuff. But you came to Cincinnati. And then what was it that brought you to Cincinnati?
I was recruited by a firm that was headquartered here to join their staff as director of training. And it was still in the I was working in the transit industry when I was in Washington, D.C., and as well as in St. Louis. And so we had relationships that we knew people here and there and so forth. And they flew the president in, and he sat down and had lunch with me and said, we want to hire you. And I said, right, I'm going to leave Washington, D.C. to move to Cincinnati. And he says, well, we can make it worth your while. And they made me an offer that I decided I couldn't afford to refuse. And it was one of the best moves I've ever made. I have enjoyed living in Cincinnati. I've had opportunities to go elsewhere, but I like Cincinnati, and I have personal reasons for wanting to stay in Cincinnati. When I wrote my book, I was really afraid to put it out there, but I had a support system that said, oh, no, baby, you're going to put this book out there. And I did. And the rest is hopefully going to be history. When I wrote my book, I was really afraid to put it out there. But I had a support system that said, oh, no, baby, you're going to put this book out there. And I did. And the rest is hopefully going to be history.
Yes, indeed. Jenny, I think that the thing that I'm so proud about for you is that you accomplished something that you had wanted to do. Even you went on to you did your graduate degree, your undergrad, your graduate degree, but you wanted to go back to school and you wanted to be get your doctorate degree. Now, I know that's something that you had thought about for a while. How difficult was that for you?
It was very difficult initially because, I wasn't a baby when I decided to do that. And people said, "You're going to do what? You're going to go back to school?" And I said, "Well, if I don't go back to school now, when? If not now, when? If not me, who?" So I decided that I'd been making up my own mind for a long time, and I was going to make it up one more time. And I was going to go back to school and get my PhD. And that's what I did. And it was difficult, but I managed to do it, and I had a good support system.
2016, at the
Yes.
age of 76, you're walking up those steps to receive your doctorate degree. What were you thinking at that time?
About my great-grandmother and all those generations of women who made a way not only for me, but for other women of color to say, "You can do this. Go for it." We're our own best cheerleaders if we give ourselves a chance. And we're the best cheerleaders our sisters can have if we just step out of our little space and say, "Girl, you can do this." I mean, I went back to school and people said, "I don't believe you're going back to school at your age." And they said that in a meaningful way, not as a derogatory remark, but to say, "You can do this." And I did. And because I had a support system, I had friends and family who believed in me. And sometimes we forget that we need to verbally express our belief in someone and say, "Oh, I'm so proud of you. You're doing such a good job." Just those words saying, "Hey, I'm proud of you," means a whole lot, especially when you're faced with the enemy and everything else on a regular basis. So, it's not just me. It's not just me who's who in this story. It's all of the people who have been supportive of me all of my life, from the day before yesterday to today. So thank you, Edna.
Nina Lewis checking in this morning saying that she's so grateful for Dr. Laster and her inspirational leadership.
Wow. I'm overwhelmed, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate you being overwhelmed. And it's not like you don't deserve it. You do. But you think about getting your doctorate degree. So, Jenny, you've done a lot. So was that enough? Had you done everything in life that you wanted to accomplish at that point?
Almost, yeah. But that was the one that was hanging over my head, like, this is a promise you made to yourself. There's a promise I made to my grandparents. My great-grandmother was literate. I've never known anything but literacy. So that's what I had to do.
So in your lifetime, there are many things that many of us can remember. And those of you that are just checking in this morning, and if you remember Jenny from a project in the community, something you've been involved in, if you've been in one of her classes, part of her training, we'd like to hear from you this morning as you check in. Now, Greg Berchenko, I believe, says, "Wow, this is so inspiring, Dr. Jenny did at the age of 76. He said, "I just feel that your grandmother and great-grandmother looked down and smiled with such great pride."
They were my strength. And because of them, I had the nerve, if you will, to go back and do it. But let me say that my great-grandmother was literate.
Jenny, if I could just jump in here just for a second, I wanted to read something from Jenny's book pertaining to what, and I will not butcher his last name. If with permission, I'll just call him Greg. I just want to read one sentence out of the book that addresses, the great, people smiling down, because Jenny said that as she, walked across the stage and was descending the stairs after receiving her degree, she says, I paused, listened, and heard my great grandmother whisper, we did it. I whispered back, yes, Grandmassy, we did. So she gave that's the very first page of her book where she gave honor to her great grandmother for inspiring her to just keep going. Even after she had passed away, Jenny never forgot those lessons and those, words of inspiration and motivation. And she used that. And most of the time, a lot of us, we forget once we get these accomplishments, we forget those people that were behind us and whose shoulders we stood on. And we kind of get puffed up and say, I did this and I did that. Yes, you did. And that's not taking credit away from you, but we must give credit. And I want to say this. I just received my second degree this year. I graduated in May of this year. And it's because of this lady. Because I'm thinking if Jenny can get her degree at 76, I got to get back in school myself. So she's still inspiring people to do what, so she's still giving back. She's still passing that along. So I just wanted to read that to let you know that Jenny never forgot where her inspiration came from.
So when you have your family 100% and friends behind you, anything can be done. Good morning, TC. She says, welcome, Jenny, to the show. Dr. Jenny C. Laster, a role model. Not much left to do, Jenny, but get that book published. And so it is published. You got a book signing coming up soon, doesn't she, Holly?
Yes, it is the 29th of October, which is just in a couple of weeks or so. It's a Saturday from 2 to 5. And it's going to be at one of, if not the only, Black bookstores in Cincinnati. It's called Smith and Hannon Bookstore. It's on Bond Street, 1405 Bond Street, which is right in the heart of the Over the Rhine, where all the new trendy stuff is down there. And like I said, it's going to be October the 29th. So people can stop in and get Jenny's book, get an autographed copy. That's going to be important. You can get the book, but if it's not autographed, you're going to be sorry. So make sure you come down to Smith and Hannon Bookstore. And Miss Joyce Smith, who owns that, I'm ashamed to say that I'm in this business and I did not know her bookstore was there. So probably a lot of people have missed the fact that we have a Black bookstore right downtown, and it's a gorgeous bookstore. So please take the opportunity to support her as well.
Congratulations, everybody, for joining the show this morning and for being part of the legacy this morning. And I use that word legacy. Jenny, thinking about your life all through the mopping floors so you won't have to, says the Grandma Massey and others and great grandmas. Tell me about what legacy means to you.
Legacy means to me something real simple. You got to give back. Okay? You can't give back if you don't have anything to give. So that puts before you the burden of making sure that you accomplish your goals so that next generation coming behind you can look at you and say, well, if she could do it, I sure can do it. Or just hear you say, yeah, I know what you feel like. I've been there. I've done that. But so often we forget that little people are watching us. Little people who call us mama, daddy, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, and cousin are watching us every single day. And the examples that they get first are the ones that they get from home. And if we don't set the example there, who will? The street will. And when the street sets the example, it's not going to be the one you want.
Back in the day, Jenny, I know you remember Artistic Apparel.
Oh, yes.
In Clifton Commons, where the Wiz used to be located. And we could go in there for book signings, and so much was going on in our community. The community as it was has definitely changed. But I know that you never left the community. You went back from corporate and community was all of you. You were community, and people knew that. What are some of the projects that you have worked on in the community and you have many great fond memories of?
Well, my best is Black Career Women with the late Linda Bates Parker.
Yes.
Because through that organization, we touched so many lives. We touched the lives of women who had gone to college, women who had not even graduated from high school, who became inspired and worked with us and started living their dreams. And I think one of the things that we have to do, Edna, is with even the children in our own households, is help them live their dreams. We've got to stop saying, oh, you can't be a so-and-so. You don't have this. It costs too much money. We give negatives, and we've got to give more positives. I never got a negative as a child. My grandfather paid for my college education for me, and he was a Pullman porter, but he had enough money to pay for my education. My grade school principal said, that Jenny, she's going to be somebody. I had no choice but to do stuff. I had no choice because there were people who were supportive of me without me even knowing it. And we as parents have got to be supportive, not only of the children in our households, but the children in our community. We've got to be supportive of things that involve young people who look like us and young people who don't look like us, because the future is now. The future is now. It's growing every day.
Jerome Anderson checking in says, live your dreams. Live your dreams.
Comment on that. A lot of times we don't live our dream because somebody said, you've got to be crazy if you think you can do so and so. Don't pay them any attention. Live your dream because you're the only person who can live it.
We all stood on someone's shoulders to get up where we are.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes,
So,
we did.
A question that you probably want to ask people, whose shoulders are people standing on today?
That is absolutely correct. We forget to acknowledge that we are where we are because there was somebody who said, oh, you're going to do wonderful things. You're going to be a great artist. You're going to be a school teacher. Wow, you're going to be a lawyer? Instead, what I hear a lot of people saying is, girl, that child's talking this stuff about he want to be a lawyer. That's not what that's not what children need to hear. They need to hear you say, oh, yes, so-and-so says he's going to be a lawyer, and we're working toward his lawsuit money right now. We're working toward doing that because he's going to be a great lawyer. Just hearing the words can be the driving force that our children need. We've got to stop giving negatives. We've got to give more positives. You know, my grandson has never heard anything but positives from us because we don't deal with negatives. He can be whatever he decides he wants to be. And it's not about money. It's about inspiration and courage and somebody who's in your corner.
What was grassroots leadership and what was accomplished through that organization?
We accomplished more than people want to give us credit for because we trained a lot of people to, number one, believe in themselves, to be supportive of what they wanted to do. And that's different than believing in yourself. You got to be supportive of you. You got to take the negatives with the positives and know which side of the road you're on and how you're going to move forth and have a plan, a written plan. And you stop listening to the naysayers and you surround yourself by people who say, oh, hey, that sounds good. Now, they may walk away and laugh at you, but at least they gave you some encouragement. And we've got to do a better job of encouraging each other to live our dreams.
So I apologize for jumping in here. Like that grassroots leadership program that you started was that at the Urban League that you started that?
No, Grassroots Leadership Academy was on its own.
Okay.
We were not part of the Urban League.
Oh, okay.
No, it was a separate entity.
Okay.
And it was put before me by other people, and they hired me to lead it and develop it.
Okay. So I know lots of people, in our community have gone through that leadership program. So what was the point of that program?
The point of the program was to get people thinking about their contributions, what they could give back, how they could use whatever skills they have to give back to the community. Because our community is not based upon PhDs and LLDs and whatever. Our culture is such that we've had to step back and pull from an inheritance that didn't have a PhD, that didn't have DDS or XYZ or whatever, but had stamina and who had a hope and a desire. I can't be it, but my child can. My grandparents didn't go to college. My mother didn't go to college. My dad walked through the college, but World War II broke out. So if you don't have a support system, none of this works when you're a child. None of this works because there's nobody in your corner saying, go for it. And we've not done a good job as a school system, as a church, any kind of community, in making sure that every child who comes through that door leaves knowing I am somebody and I can be an even bigger somebody.
The spoken word has so much power to believe in your dreams. And as Jerome says, live your dreams. So, Jenny, at the Cincinnati Urban League, as Holly mentioned, you were Director of Leadership Development. In that role, who came through and what were you able to accomplish with them?
Who came through our leadership program at the Urban League. And a lot of them are now in key leadership positions, not only public positions, but within corporate America. There's nowhere for us to go where you had cheerleaders. And the Urban League was the cheerleader for this community for a long time, and it still is. But we have not done a good job of supporting the main cheerleader that we have. We drive past the building and say, oh, yeah, that's where the Urban League is. But the Urban League has done a lot to help this community and help people as individuals as opposed to a collective that you might find somewhere.
I remember a title, Glorifying the Lions, Jenny.
Yes.
Glorifying the Lions. What was that about?
Well, there's an old saying, until the lions have their own historian, tales of hunting will always glorify the hunter. And we had to learn how to glorify the lions. We have to glorify each other. We have to put our children on pedestals. We have to reach back to their grandparents and say, yeah, I remember when my mama did so-and-so, and she was the first one in our community. We forget to pass on our oral tradition, pass through our oral tradition, the things that we have done to survive. Survival has not been easy for most of us. We live in a world that takes us for granted, and our children take us for granted without realizing that you couldn't go to school just because you wanted to. Nobody made you go to school. You went to school because you felt a need. My grandmother graduated from the 8th grade. And for her, that was a major accomplishment. But she saw more for me. And so my grandmother instilled in me the need to go to college and, quote, be a teacher. Because when I first went to college back in, we won't say what century and what year, there were few professional jobs available for women of color. One was teaching, the other was nursing in a Black hospital. There weren't a lot of jobs there where we could dress up every day and go to work and be somebody. We were the hired help that they kept in the corner of the room with the mop. And my grandmother used that mop so I wouldn't have to. And my grandmother and my mother said, oh, no, you're going to be somebody. So I didn't have any choice.
And you've met a whole lot of somebodies in the world. We want to show some of those photographs of people who's just a few, because I know too many of them. We can't show them all this morning. So we're going to show the picture of you. Now on the screen, you see them, Jenny. Tell us who you're pictured with, people that I recognize and I know.
Well, there's Gordon Parks and Harry Belafonte. Yes. I didn't do anything to help them. Actually, they helped me because they encouraged me just by being willing to be in the picture with me. You know, they didn't have to do that. And a lot of us forget that the people who are helping them are not required by law or anything else to help. So when you have that opportunity, you encourage someone else and you inspire them by just, quote, being in the picture.
The distinguished Gordon Parks with the white mustache and the white hair, but a prolific movie maker, filmmaker, writer, author, photographer. I think the first Black photographer for Vogue magazine.
Yeah.
I know C. Smith got a kick out of knowing him.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes. And then Shaft, the movie Shaft, producer, writer for Shaft. So that's great. And next to him is the great civil rights leader, Harry Belafonte.
Right.
Still living today.
Yes. Yes. You know, I've had the pleasure of being in their company.
Indeed. And I know that let's put up a couple more, Nate, see who we have here. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that tall guy on that picture, you know, he wanted to be president and he became president. And you know what? We've got to reach out to people like him and say, you can do it, because it's that encouragement that drives you. And the next picture
is Dick Gregory.
Dick Gregory, that's my homeboy. He's from
Is he
St.
from
Louis.
St. Louis?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Long time ago.
Civil rights leader.
Uh-huh.
Comedian. I mean, all of that. Dick Gregory, the late Dick Gregory. That's wonderful. To meet the president and stand in the picture with him. All right, Jenny, that's all right. That's Jenny.
Well,
she's going to be somebody, huh?
Hey, you know, what can I say?
One of the things I want to interject here, it wasn't just it was a
Right.
photo op. It wasn't just that. Jenny received from President Barack Obama a Lifetime Achievement Award. So it wasn't just they were in the same space at the same time. She actually received an award from President Obama. So I don't want that to be left out and people think that was just a random photo.
But for me, I would take a random photo. That's all right with me.
Yeah.
TC says, listening to this just made my day. Thank you for sharing your story. Jenny, that's all right.
Well, you know, your story's not worth much if you keep it to yourself. And there's a way to share it without it being braggadocious. You know, we can each reach one. We can each teach one. We can go to the right Sunday school and teach first graders. We can go to the right playground and teach the boys how to shoot hoops. There's so many ways we can make a difference as individuals and in the organizations that we are so proud of. You know, and I'm not calling any sororities names or fraternity names. And yes, I do belong to a sorority, and they haven't seen me in a long time. But we've got to learn how to use those organizations in a more constructive way for the youth in our communities who don't have a mama or a daddy who have doctor or teacher or whatever as a part of their name, who don't have a title. You know, how do we help them?
Jerome Anderson checking in this morning. Jerome says at the age of 63, he said, I'm not rich, but I am an artist. I'm a chef. I'm a photographer. Jerome said before his father's death in 1976, she heard him tell my mother that boy can be anything he never knows. People never heard of him, but he could be anything. But those words are instilled in my heart and my soul, said Jerome. He heard his dad say to my mom, that boy can be anything. Now, you know that's wonderful when you hear your parents say that. They don't know you listening, but he
That's
said it
right.
still instills it in his heart and soul. Like you said, your grandmother and great grandmother. When you crawled up in the bed with her reading the Sunday funny papers, and that's how
That's
you
right.
learn to read.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That
And
Jenny, she's going to be somebody. Well, you were the first woman to hold the position of vice president for AT&E, AT&E Management and Service Company in Cincinnati. Now, that company must have been a while back, or is it still in operation?
they're no longer in Cincinnati under that name.
Okay. You were the
But they're,
first woman to serve as Director of Human Resources for the American Public Transportation Association in Washington, D.C. You shared a
yes,
little bit of that.
that was an interesting position because in the transit industry, there were very few women uh, in the local transit systems or on a national level who were involved in mass transportation. And I just happened to have had the opportunity in St. Louis to be the director of training for the bus company. Can you imagine? I didn't even ride on the bus, but I was director of training, but I knew how to write a training program. And that led to my getting the attention of the trade association for the mass transit industry in Washington, D.C. And I became a commuting wife. I worked in Washington, D.C. during the week and flew home on Friday night to my husband and my daughter in St. Louis, and it all worked.
And if I could throw something in here real quick, um, it's kind of like going back a little bit when we talked about the Black career women, and many of you know that Jenny had her own business as well, and it was called Executive Circle. And one of the things that I would like for her to share is that she talks about a lot about instilling things in young people, but sometimes when you're grown and you didn't get it, there's an opportunity for you to learn and grow and get that encouragement. And that's one of the things that Jenny did with those two organizations. And I would like for her to talk about that, as well as, she traveled extensively with those groups. She would take her organization's conferences to different countries. So it wasn't just here in the United States that they got to experience these workshops. She went, all of this is in the book, but I want her to tell the audience, some of the places that she actually took her leadership training to.
Okay. Well, I have to first say that Linda Bates Parker and I did that. We did a lot of that together, and she's no longer here, but I have to always make sure that I give her kudos because she was my first friend here, and she helped me break through the barriers that strangers meet when they move to Cincinnati. But Linda and I came up with all kind of ideas and things. We created Executive Circle, which was a conference that we held in the Bahamas and in Africa for men and women of color to hone their skills so that they could step forth and become leaders and move the country, if you will, in a position to a position where everyone has a chance. And she's no longer here, but that's still a driving force for me. Is how do we move our young people so that they learn the lessons now instead of when they're old, you know? So that's one of my prized things. And then my working with the Urban League was also critical and important, not because of what they paid me, but because of the changes they were able to create in the population that looks like me in Cincinnati. And so we have to always, each one reach one. We've got to always reach one and teach one. It's one thing to reach them, but if you don't teach them, forget it. We've got to share what we know. We've got to be willing to move beyond the pedestal they've put us on, because we weren't born on that pedestal. We've got to move beyond that and become active members in the community. I don't care where you may live and pay your taxes, but we've got to step back and remember where we came from. At least those folk who are my age, we didn't come from upper whatever. We came from the hood. And that's just breaking it down as far as I can take it. That's where we came from, and that's where we owe some debt, because it was the lady who cleaned the floors, who lived in the house next door to you, who encouraged you to go to school and said, "Oh, I'm so proud of you. Every day I see you going down the street to catch that bus, and you got your books and you're just moving." That's the kind of stuff that drove me. And my grandmother was one of the women who cleaned floors. So I didn't come from wealth. I came from hardworking folk who took what they had and turned it around and used it to strengthen our community, so that I can say I'm Dr. Jenny Laster. Had it not been for those dollars, I would have been Jenny Laster, cleaning lady. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they gave me a chance. And we have to continue to reach one. We have to each one reach one, each one teach one. Find a child that needs some support. Find a teenager that's on the verge of dropping out of school because they don't have decent clothes to wear. We throw away clothes that kids could wear. There are things that we can do that don't require organizations. Nobody says you've got to be a sorority sister or a fraternity brother to help somebody who looks like you. But we're so busy, and I'm being very judgmental when I say it. We're very busy climbing the ladder, and we forget to reach back and bring somebody up behind us. And I've been guilty of that as well. I'm far from being perfect, believe me. And so all of us have a debt we have to pay. We all have a debt to pay to the rest of our community.
Indeed, we never get too old to learn.
No.
Brother Greg checking in again. Greg says, replying to Jerome, he said, of all the things that late Bob Marley said in his interviews, was the one thing that stuck with him is that when Bob said, "My richness is life."
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you live a rich life, it means that not dollars and cents. That's not the richness we're talking about. The richness is your ability to take what you have and know how to share it and grow it. It's the same as dollars. You put your dollars in the bank and they grow interest. You put your time and your attention into our community, and the community grows, and the interest rate changes. And we have fewer of our children who are feeding the jails and feeding the cemeteries, because they can look at you and say, "Oh, but so-and-so teaches at my Sunday school, and so teaches in my school, and so is doing." There's so many things we can do to make a difference and to make a change. There is nothing wrong with us, and I'm saying us as in people of color. I'm going to be just blunt. I'm blunt. There's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing to stop us from reaching back and finding a kid who's hungry and saying, "Hey, let me buy you a hamburger." But you go ask their mother first, okay? There's nothing wrong with us starting a Boy Scout troop or a Girl Scout troop. There's nothing wrong with us taking off our fancy clothes and putting on some blue jeans and some desert boots and going out and helping kids with their homework on Saturdays. There's nothing wrong with us going back to the Black church and making sure that we make contributions that are beyond our pocketbooks, but contributions of our brains and our talents, so that we change our community. We are responsible for what happens with us, no one else. And I was blessed. I had folks in my life from the time I was a baby. My great grandmother taught me to read, so I've always known what I could do. Okay?
And I stop and think back on people that are running this show this morning. There's Nate in the studio. He's keeping us on the air, keeping the video going good. I appreciate that, Nate, for you. Created his own Black media company so we wouldn't have to ask anybody to do it for us. So I can go to Nate to say, here is my Straight Talk Live that I want to recreate and do on social media. Here's Holly writing books. I don't know how many books you have written, Holly. People just don't know a lot about your background, but it's a secret we keep to ourselves, but it's no longer a secret because everybody knows. How many books have you written?
Oh, man. I've written a lot, because a lot of the books that I write, I ghostwrite.
Yes.
I'll write the book and my name is not even on it. So so those I don't even know how many of those exactly, but I have 3 published for my own books, but most of the books I edit, and I know that she won't mind me saying it, but I've edited Annie Ruth's books, Box Miller, just a lot of the people that you read their books. I've had my hand in it someplace. So not bragging, just letting just for the credibility. But that's what I do is I write. I love to write.
I understand going back again to work harder, but I'm just saying that just in this mix of this show this morning, I could have and should have probably just maybe retired years ago, but I could not let go because there was still more to do. There were still people that a lot of us didn't know, and the generations didn't know a Jenny Laster. They didn't know a Gilbert Young. They didn't know a Bing Davis, the people that this show has brought on. And so we never get too old to give back. So I appreciate you all being here this morning. Jerome says hello to Nate. Brenda Harris, applause. Cincinnati Digital Media, chiming back to Jerome. And back to all of you that are just tuning in this morning and just listening to the show. Speaking of being abroad or going abroad, Jenny Laster, I understand that you got a 2-year appointment to the United States lay representative of the British Methodist Church, requiring you to travel to the United Kingdom in 2006 and 2007. And you also served in offices in the United Methodist Church, and you're a member of the Black Methodists for Church Renewal. So your work not only has been in corporate and grassroots, but also in the church ministry. So kudos for that opportunity that you have been able to give back in that arena.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And I would like to add, Edna, I apologize. There is no way that any book could or any interview could capture everything that Dr. Jenny C. Laster has done. It was just too many. And so in the book, we kind of like group stuff together and stuff, but there's just no way. I look at her wall of plaques and statuettes and, those little crystal things that people give you. Yeah. And there's a whole bookcase full of them. Okay. And at first I started writing them down and I'm like, okay, this is overwhelming. So I just said a multitude. And I'll say that again, a multitude of accolades and honors, that Jenny has received throughout her life for what she's done. And for her, we wrote about a page and a half of that kind of stuff because Jenny did not want, and she was insistent that this book was not just about her. She insisted that it be a workbook to document and celebrate your own achievements.
The hour went by really quick, didn't it, Jenny?
It did. Yes, it did. And, I can talk forever. But I want to show my appreciation by saying thank you to not only you, but to the people who are taking the time to listen and watch. And, yes, support my book, but more importantly, find a young person and support them so that they too can grow up and have an opportunity to be on the Edna Howell-Parrish show.
Thank you for Jenny. Thank you for C. Smith, my photographer. Yay. For getting everything ready, getting Jenny over here. And thank you for Holly, author of, and not even the ghostwriter. She's out here. She's live and well. So we appreciate you so much, Holly, for joining us. Thank you all for listening. I'm Edna Howell-Parrish.
Thanks for tuning in to Straight Talk Live with renowned radio pioneer Edna Howell-Parrish, the program dedicated to presenting thought-provoking issues and opinions with the goal of challenging listeners to re-examine their assumptions and expand their opinions and give thought to new ideas and concepts to better their lives and the lives of others. Join us next week for another opportunity to participate in making the world better. So until next week, live your best life from your friends at Straight Talk Live and host Edna Howell-Parrish.
Thank you for listening. And remember, Dr. Jenny C. Laster's questions. Who mopped floors for you? And more importantly, who are you mopping floors for today?